Hi there everyone, and welcome to the next episode in our series to help organisations come out of hibernation post-COVID. At this point, we've obviously provided 3 different episodes, one on people, one on leadership, and our episode from last week was all about marketing. So this week, we are very excited to have a guest speaker join us, and it's my very good friend, ex-colleague from Nike and business partner, Mandy Ayres, who's going to talk to us about purpose.
Hello,
Welcome.
good to be here.
Welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously I know you very well, having worked with you for 12 years at Nike and 4 years as a business partner on our other business, Brand New Sport. So for the purposes of our audience, our listeners, can you just give us a whistle-stop tour in terms of your background and I guess why we feel you are the best person to speak to people about purpose?
Okay, well, good to be here. Thank you for inviting me along. And I'll just, very top line, I'll just talk about my time at Nike. I joined Nike after a career in sport. I worked in football for 5 years before I took the leap and worked at Nike. And I came very much from kind of the charitable sector, if you like. I helped set up the Football Foundation within football back in 2000. And then 2005, I went across to work for a corporate organisation called Nike, the sportswear company. And I was a bit kind of surprised that I was going to work there because I didn't sell anything and I didn't really market anything. But what I came very much from that sort of charitable, making the world a better place position. And so when I joined Nike, they said, no, it's okay. We don't want you to do any of that. We want you to come and work with us in our corporate social responsibility team. And at the time I went in 2005, I basically worked on everything from the UK perspective around compliance, sustainability, and around community impact. So what was our footprint? What was our legacy that we were leaving? And I worked within part of the European team. And then through that time, so I learned an awful lot about kind of how a business runs, literally soup and nuts. From I remember doing an amazing trip to Turkey, looking at kind of our supply chain and just where our responsibility started from. So philosophically started to look at all of those things about how the business is pulled together. And then I kind of worked particularly around community impact and kind of what's the legacy we can leave behind. And I was fortunate enough to be an integral part of the global team executing the World Cup in South Africa, where we also tackled HIV and AIDS in terms of the biggest issue, the problem to be solved was actually getting people tested. So we made testing a cool thing, worked with Right to Care, getting testing, all in kind of getting counselling, testing, treatment, all in the same place while you're kind of walking through a pop-up stand of a Nike installation in a shopping mall. So we can.
I was just wondering if you did anything from a social perspective on the vuvuzelas.
The vuvuzelas. Not on the vuvuzelas. Oh my God! When I was over there, I've still got my vuvuzela, to be fair. But one of the things that we did do was we built a community. Well, we built a brand statement in Soweto, and I think this is key to kind of around purpose. And so I remember back in the day, we went with with an idea of building a community facility in Soweto as kind of a give back. And the brands and the president of the brand, he came and looked at the plans and he said they're not big enough. And actually, we should be looking at this through the lens of Soweto is made up of a population of 4 million consumers. And we should be building something for the consumers. And we shouldn't be seeing this as a charitable give back. And we built a state-of-the-art football facility in the heart of Soweto, which was phenomenal. It was so big and the Lux lighting was so bright that actually it had a massive community impact because it lit up parts of Soweto, so kids could play their football anywhere. So so I did that, and really what in the latter part of my career, just coming off the World Cup and the work that I did latterly at Nike, was around actually looking at the purpose of the company and linking everything that we do to that purpose. And the purpose at Nike, the reason Nike is there, is to bring inspiration and aspiration to every athlete in the world. It's not there to sell as many shoes as possible, although that's kind of a good byproduct. It's not, it's not, but the reason that everybody goes onto the Nike campus in World Headquarters or in Hilversum or wherever is the purpose, and certainly I felt this at Nike, was that you went there to bring inspiration and aspiration to every athlete in the world. So whether you were designing a better boot or a better shirt for people to actually play, or whether it was about, and they had an asterisk on athlete. And so an athlete was basically, if you have a body, you are an athlete. And so it was about getting the whole world moving. And the work that I focused on was a thing called Design to Move, which we created. And the Design to Move was about enabling, was about solving the problem in the world that we had, which was that we'd stopped moving. So we did loads of research, and we had an insight that this generation of young people were probably likely to die 5 years earlier than their parents because of their physical inactivity. And this was maybe shouldn't say pandemic, but this was a disease that was attacking the whole world, where, you know, regardless of levels of wealth. So it became something to solve for, and that's the purpose at Nike. And so that's the work that I did, very much at the purpose of everything.
And just hearing you speak, I mean, obviously, when we were working together at Nike, I was on the brand or the sales side of the business. So obviously, we would join together in these task forces, and we would see this amazing work. And even hearing about it now, you know, I feel goosebumps at what the brand achieved. And I guess from our listeners' perspective, and being mindful of what we do in Curious is about helping SMEs primarily. We obviously do work with big brands as well. Is coming back to that purpose. It doesn't matter whether you're a one-man band, whether you're an SME or you're a multinational corporation. It's really important to be clear about the purpose ever more now, to make sure that you're really focused and have true belief in your purpose. And I suppose it might be worth just taking a step back to just explaining from your perspective what purpose is, just to make it really super clear, so people understand as we go into the top tips in the next section of the interview, what purpose.
Yeah, so purpose is it's the same whether you, as an individual, what's your life purpose or what's your business purpose. It's kind of, and some people call it, it's your purpose, it's your mission, it's your vision. It's like, whatever it is, don't get caught up in what you define it as. It's what is the reason you are in business. It's that simple. And also that hard, right? So if I give you an example, so Tesla, right? They're not here just to make electric cars, right? Their mission, and I should say to you, their purpose is to accelerate the advent of sustainable energy, right? And part of that is building a car that doesn't need fossil fuel or whatever, right? Okay, so that is a great example. Nike, it's about inspiration and aspiration to every athlete in the world. They're two very large companies, but it doesn't matter. It's kind of what's the reason that you are in business. And if you say the reason I am in business is to make money, then you're starting to have to push water uphill, because it's about making good profit and it's about making good money, and that will be kind of the sustainable piece. But unless you get, you know, making your purpose is to actually, and really it's about solving problems of the world or solving problems for your consumers. It's what's going to make life easier.
So thank you. I'm just really interested because we've recently been working with a chap from an SME, and part of what one of his issues has been this whole bit about trying to do all the what before he has the why, if you know what I mean. So sort of almost spread very thin and then reverse engineering that all the way back to what was the thing that started this in the whole first place? Why did you do this rather than going and getting a job at Tesco's or whatever it was, and getting that why defined, that problem that you're trying to solve? So then the next question, I guess, would be really, really great to hear from you is, why is that important, or what can you do with that next? So great, I understand why, but then it's, well, why is that important? What does that then lead us on to do next, if you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, if I'm hearing you right, what we're talking about here is kind of like, if people focus on what they do, they're thinking of the process. So they're thinking about how they're actually doing something. And if that leads you, then you'll soon forget what the purpose is. So I don't know, let's take an industry like, I'm old enough to remember video shops, right? So take someone who did video shops, their thing was to give out videos. Now, if their thing was to actually provide home entertainment, they would have been in business a lot longer. So it was actually about making the experience at home of watching a movie brilliant. That focuses on why I'm doing it. If you focus on, I've got a video shop or a chain, if I'm Blockbusters and I've got a chain of video shops and it's about keeping the video shops in business, then it's going to be short-sighted. So that's why it's important to focus on why we're doing what we're doing, what are we trying to solve for, and then how do we adapt to that? Because consumers will, change. I mean, videos is just one example, but just look at how we've accelerated through the world of digital. Look at how we're adapting our lifestyles through COVID. So it's kind of like, it's not what. So, one of the things I do is a lot of workshops and I do a lot of do coaching. So it's actually to support people find their purpose. So if that's what I'm about doing, then I should be looking at lots of different mediums and not just traveling all over the world, bringing people together.
So the purpose then really drives the profitability. So with the lack of purpose and understanding that your purpose is set, but your profitability and almost your processes could change, and they should. Because using that Blockbuster video analogy, if their purpose had been about an entertainment experience or improving a behavior or a social norm, which is about our obsession with watching films and content, if they'd been really clear on their purpose, then their process and their business model underneath it evolved, right?
Yeah.
So it's really important to say that purpose doesn't necessarily have to mean it's about building stadiums or helping to eradicate obesity in kids or getting more people to move. Yes, that is, if that's appropriate for your organization, if that's the purpose and the goal that you're setting out. But it's, you're not necessarily suggesting it's the same for every SME.
No, and actually, so your purpose, the purpose in business, because a lot of people say, purpose is a new way of saying CSR, and I said right at the top, I came from that world of CSR. But my experience at Nike taught me that actually, no, this isn't CSR. This is just about doing really good business. Because if everybody in the company is getting up in the morning to come and do these amazing things, because they're they're all sports mad and they want to, bring inspiration and aspiration to every athlete every day, every minute of the day, then that's a reason to get out of bed. If my purpose if the purpose of the company is just to create profit for shareholders, then I'm going to get disillusioned really quickly. There's another argument, probably longer than this podcast, that could kind of look to explore the mess we're in the markets, etc., where businesses have only focused on the shareholders. And actually, consumers are getting more savvy. Now, when I started this work 2005, it was like, that's a nice to know, but actually it doesn't change anybody's buying power in terms of what they're looking at the purpose of the company, right? Because people are just going to go and get the biggest bargain. That shifted, and that shifted because the world has shifted in the world of digital. So people are being more discerning, whether it be in your pension fund or wherever it be. So, and people are looking at that from like how they support independent businesses right now. You know, so there's a whole raft of things. So I'm just saying that actually my starting point is the world has shifted. So people want to invest in purposeful businesses, and purposeful businesses, it's just good business. It's just business.
Yeah.
And I think, I mean, Charlotte, you kind of covered the profitability side of it with People, Planet, Profit, with what you were talking about there. But Blockbuster's just a brilliant example with Netflix, and as one of my favorite books. We actually recommended it on the leadership book, but in the leadership module, sorry. But if I'm hearing you correctly, actually having a strongly defined purpose actually encourages diversification anyway. So if your purpose is nailed, then how you do whatever you want to do, you can shift as the world moves, as COVID happens, as the next thing happens. You can shift. If it's about quality home entertainment and everybody is stuck at home, find a way to get entertainment in people's houses that isn't going to a store where they'll charge you 50 quid if you're late with a video.
Yeah.
Whereas, you know, now I think what we're seeing is with digital, the world changes so much quicker than what anybody's ever been used to. And it's those companies that are like, right, well, we just do it differently. We're just going to do it in a different way. And
yeah,
that's kind of how people are adapting, because we all as consumers, we need to carry on with our lives and we want to keep going. So it's the businesses that want to keep up with the consumers, not the other way around almost.
absolutely.
Isn't it?
And, you know, and for you as a business, what are you solving for that consumer? So, you know, you pick up a really good point around people rally around ideas. So your business should be rallied around an idea, and then everybody should be around that idea. All of your employees, all of the outliers, we call them, but kind of the people that kind of are looking at your business. So when you're developing your business, rather than thinking through how can I, and excuse my French, but how can I screw the consumer for a bit more money, really the lens you should look through is how can we all be in a win-win-win-win-win situation? How can I win for consumers? How can I win for the employees, who actually, by the way, are probably your consumers as well? And, you know, how does everyone win? How does broader society win for this? And if you look through that lens, then, and it's around a great idea, then you're on purpose.
So that kind of answers the next question perfectly in terms of what can businesses, or starting to answer it, what can businesses do to start to implement purpose? And I know that you've been helping one of your ex-colleagues, somebody that I knew on the periphery, Lisa McCallum, in her quest to build purpose into organisations. Obviously, she just recently authored a book. And I know that you were just talking about the CEOs. So you started talking about the C and the E. So I was just, as a prompt, it'd be great if you could give us some context behind.
Yeah, so I'm going to give the book. It's written by two ex-Nike people, two people who I hold dear to my heart. It's called Inspired Inc. And it's been written by Lisa McCallum and Emily Brew, who did a lot of work behind the Nike Foundation work, which is kind of what a lot of this has been inspired by. But this is, and Lisa has gone and she's set up a company called Inspired Companies, which I do a lot of work for now. And really, her work, she wants to work with companies, or we all want to work with companies, to change industries so that we can make a real shift in the world. And that, you know, the emphasis being that for her and for this work, it's that companies actually need to step up and can step up, and they have the power to step up and make a real positive change for the world. So this isn't just about one company at a time, but it's actually how can we work with companies who will lead, who will then change. But that, and really the book, whilst the book is kind of like we're talking about big industries, this is actually something that you can do as a one-man band company. This is, and it's about, we talk about the CEO. So the C being your consumer, and your consumer is always king, right, or queen. But your consumer is about solving for that, which you've talked about. The E stands for your employees. So your employees are your biggest brand ambassadors, and they give you the biggest insight. So the emphasis being that if you can democratize leadership within your company and give away some of the leadership to your employees, then you will actually, what you will get in return for that is a lot more insight about your product and about what you're doing. So really support your employees because they will bring back some of the best ideas. So and the whole emphasis being that the CEO is like flipped. So whereas it was at the top before, the CEO is right along the bottom. And then the outliers are the kind of the people outside your organization. So whether it be governments or whether it be NGOs or whether it just be local community organizations, which are your local neighborhood. So all of those need to win in this situation. And then people talk about purpose, what's the triple bottom line? Purpose, profit, and something else. Yeah. And profit. So really, what we're talking about is to reframe some of that work. Is to think of it in a slightly different way, and that is about having your inspired mission. So having an inspired mission, and then that's what we've talked about in terms of what's your big idea, and then talking about your inspired action. So what are the actions that you're going to do? What's the authentic pursuit of your mission? And be really authentic and real about that. And then you will get inspired profit. And for inspired profit, it's good profit. So we're not saying you can only be on purpose and you can only give something back to the world if you're not making any money out of it. It's actually making good profit so that everyone wins out of that. So that's kind of what we're talking about here.
I am desperate to jump in about the current situation that I'm in the middle of, but it's probably best not to. But everything you've just said there is about this isn't purpose driven from the top to the bottom, and if you don't understand, you're off the ship and all the rest of it. It just, you're talking about, we all believe in this problem, this big problem, bigger than just this product or service. We believe in this big problem that we're all trying to solve, and about giving some of that power to the employees to try and save. And I can't stop smiling because I'm just so desperate to talk about something else, but I'm conscious of everybody's time and we could be here for ages. Can you give us 3 top tips or like things to think about for SMEs specifically? Because that would be generally who Charlotte and I spend our time talking to, but just even if it's 3 questions they need to ask themselves or an order, just give us 3 things that we can go with.
Well, actually, I would probably repeat about having an inspired mission. So really rethink, is the purpose of why you're here, or your strapline or whatever you want it to be, kind of what is the reason that you started this business? And if you just say it's to make money and to go and live on the beach and get somebody else to work, think again, right? So what's the problem? That's a given, right? Okay, but what is the purpose of your business? What's the idea? What's the great idea, and what's the problem you're going to solve? So inspired mission. Just go back and focus on it, right? If you do nothing else, get from that, because from that you will get inspired action, not just from you and your business partner, but from everybody in your company and your consumers. Okay, because they'll give you great feedback. Patagonia, they just want to be in business to let their employees go surfing. I want to go and work for Patagonia, not that I can surf, but so inspired action. And then focus on the inspired profit. So don't go to where can I nip and tuck and get a little bit more out of somebody else, but how can I make good money with everybody on side supporting that? So I'll finally just say, we will be, as Inspired Companies, we will be doing another webinar, which we can maybe create a link to your, where we're just doing an analysis of who's gone through COVID, who's been doing really well and who hasn't been, and just doing some analysis around that. So would be happy for your SMEs. Obviously, if your SMEs want to kind of get involved in seeing some of that, getting some inspiration about that. But yeah, this isn't just for the industry. This is for everybody.
And I suppose, not to be daunted with the 3 tips that you're suggesting. So people might be listening to this thinking, I don't have anything written down. I don't have a purpose. Don't get too hung up with the wordsmithing of it. Just, it's a belief. It's almost going back to remembering why you had the idea to go into business, or why you're working for the organization, or to, spend time thinking about it, and not to get too worried about, how it looks, but also just to say, to reach out to us, and we can help you carve out what that purpose is, just from, spending a bit of time understanding your business. So don't feel intimidated by the purpose.
I have a little phrase that I say: don't let perfection get in the way of progress. And the hardest thing is to start, and just get on, just start. And if you come from an authentic, purposeful place, you will get the crowd supporting you, and they will help you with the solutions. And of course, you guys will help them with the solutions.
Well, I found that very cathartic. It was lovely for me to go back down memory lane and remember all this great stuff from Nike. I think, speaking on behalf of Greg, I'm sure he's got a great deal out of it. So I hope our listeners have got a lot from it too.
Yeah, well, the book is great, because it kind of like, it just looks at, it's almost like no judgment, but it's kind of like looks at a whole host of companies who've done this really well, and it just gives you some food for thought. So thank you for inviting me.
Thanks a lot, Mandy.